Thank you. Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's going to be a busy week, Cyber Week. So we'll try to shorten hours so we'll be able to move on to the next sessions, next events that you have. Quickly introducing myself, and then I'll introduce the panel. Louder. Maybe the volume can be louder. Is that better? Oh.
Louder.
Now I think I'm walking in Galgalatz or something. Okay. So my name is Gidi Farkash, and I'm the Chief Information Security Officer of a company called People. Besides this, I'm also the President of the IC Square Israeli chapter. So some of you might know me from there. And without further ado, let's introduce the panelists. So to my right, the first one, Sharon Halperin. She's the Director of Information Security and IT at HoneyBook. Prior to that, Sharon was the Director of Enterprise Security and IT at Tinder. And yes, I assume that some of you came just to hear some tips. And prior to that, she also ran the security and privacy program at 23andMe, the DNA company. To her right, Tzach Horowitz, and he is a long-time cybersecurity practitioner who in the last couple of years changed roles from a full-time CISO to a CISO as a service in multiple organizations. And prior to that, and during also those roles, Tzach designed and implemented cybersecurity strategies, architecture, and solutions for global tier 1 organizations such as Daimler, BMW, Ferrari. So far so good. And then Vodafone, General Electric, Intensa, San Paulo, and more. He also holds the CISSP and CCSP. I'm proud of that one. And is a valued member of the IC Square Israeli chapter, obviously. And to his right, last but not least, Shimri Vachter. I know Shimri from Cisco's time or something like this. So Shimri also holds the CISSP and also the certified CISO. He is a leading Central East Europe, Russia, Ukraine, and the Israel SASE sales for Cloudfare. If you're not familiar with SASE, you should Google it definitely. It's amazing. And I think that CSA was one of the organizations that put a lot of effort on the concept of zero trust, that SASE is part of it as well. Shimri has a seasoned cyber executive experience serving large global conglomerates such as Cisco, Dell, HPE, and IBM. He's leading cyber sales, building go-to-market strategies, influencing on a product architecture design and project execution through collaboration with product and R&D leaders. He has more than 15 years of experience, and he is also volunteering as a board member, setting the financial strategy, cyber lecture, and a podcast guest. So to our main question, and maybe that's also the message that we would like to make you agree on by the end of this session, and if not, by the way, money back guaranteed, go to Moshe. After meeting our esteemed guests or panelists, let's try to think ahead of corporate IT or cloud security when you think about corporate IT, and we'll try to provoke you a bit, so feel free to comment from the crowd, or later on we will keep some time for questions from you. So let's start with this one. Considering a diverse experience and expertise you all have here, and everyone basically have here, I'd love to hear your perspective on the security challenges of cloud-based corporate IT. Do you believe the cloud is inherently good, bad, or something in the middle? Or something totally different, obviously. And of course, feel free to share your insights from your experience, current and previous one. Sharon, let's start with you.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Awesome. So first, before I answer your question, I just want to say thank you to Moshe and all the moderators that made sure. You know what I'm about to say? I didn't tell you what I hope you noticed that the event today, you're going to see very diverse panelists here. And I really appreciate the work that the moderators and Moshe put into making sure that there is good representation of gender diversity on this stage today. So thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. Wait until you see Shaha's panel. It's going to be last, so it's an amazing one. All right, so how many people here are security practitioners? You not with a security vendor, but you are a security practitioner. Awesome. And even if you are a security practitioner within a vendor, that's also like raise your hand. How many are still on-prem or hybrid setting of on-prem and cloud? Wow. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so I've in the last 7 years, I've worked for kind of cloud first companies. So for me, working within the cloud is a given, right? It's no longer about like good or bad. For me, this is the way it's going to be. I'm coming from pretty like I guess small to medium companies. 23andMe, when I started there, we were about 250 people. 4 years later, when I left, we were about 500. Tinder, you'll be surprised to hear, is a pretty small company. We're about 600 people at Tinder, and HoneyBook is about 220 people. And so for smaller businesses, working within the cloud is kind of a must, right? For their scalability, for their efficiency, for their ability to work fast, relying on cloud infrastructure is really the way to go. And so for us, the CISOs, the ones that are here to protect this environment, we kind of have to accept it and start to manage the risk as early as possible, because there's really no way back. And we need to understand that in the cloud, we are surrendering control over our data to some extent, and we have to identify the right controls for us, as well as the IT corporate controls, because that is also completely changing. The IT corporate is no longer on-prem as well. It's completely in the cloud. The younger the company is, the more cloud-based it is. You're going to find like nothing behind it. You open the closet and there's basically just like a few switches and routers there. There's hardly anything there. So for us, it's really a given, and security controls have to go in very, very quickly as soon as we can.
I would say that about half our customers are cloud-based or cloud-native organization. About half are hybrid, but actually everybody is hybrid. I have a cloud-native customer where right now I have a disk of an infected computer being shipped over from Vietnam to Israel to investigate. That's a cloud-native environment. Yes. So the mindset should be different. I want to relate to what happened in the previous panel. But there are differences, and most organizations that try to make the transition stay in a hybrid environment. I met with a European bank, which the CIO/CISO received a requirement to migrate more than 1,000 applications to the cloud environment within 6 months. The only thing that will happen after that is that he has no idea what he has. He has no idea where the logs are. And much more important, there's a huge difference in how you approach cloud resources and on-prem resources. And one of the key things is, if you lose a license on an on-prem resource, you can then access the machine later and get the logs, get the data. If you remove a license from a cloud resource, it will not be there. The cloud vendor will not keep the data forever because it's not in his business. It's not his business. So there's a huge difference in how you access when you migrate, and most organizations find themselves managing multiple environments without the skill sets, and here training comes in. Here many of the concepts that we talked about on-prem are just in an order of magnitude larger, because you have to plan everything, especially when we relate to IR and to shadow IT that we will discuss in later questions. Then if you want to be able to know what happened, you need to be able to collect the logs, you need to be able to retain the logs. Where do you do that? How do you do that? How much does it cost? All of these questions are questions you have to answer in a different way in the cloud than in the on-prem environment. It's not a matter of if, good, bad, it's inevitable. If you don't consider it beforehand, you will face challenges when the event happens.
So Gidi, you've mentioned, is cloud good or bad? You forgot one word, the evil. So I think the key difference over here, if moving to the cloud or not moving to the cloud or being hybrid, is the fear of the evil. If you think about it, if you look at legacy companies, the major fear over there at senior management level is if we go to the cloud, we will be more exposed to the evil side of the internet and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a small secret over here, you're exposed anyhow. So the other thing is, I would say there's a major difference between SMB / medium enterprises into large enterprises and governments. Resources are scarce, and I mean financial resources. SMB, medium, you have to be fast. Sharon, you mentioned it. You have to be fast, you have to adapt. Fast cloud native is inherited in your business model. So you have to adjust your security to be cloud native. And as one that recently moved to a cloud native company, it is a must. That's why we are so fast with our DevOps. That's why we are so fast with our SecOps. We are cloud native end to end. We work as a cloud native. All our employees works like that. It makes us move very, very fast. And if you're an enterprise, large enterprise or government, it's very tough to do it because you have legacy management perspective, legacy departments, legacy product-oriented, similar departments or different departments. So there's a lot of politics within this perspective. But I would say that now as a user, by the way, now let's look into the customer experience. We're talking about technology and how we should act, but finally we should look at our customers. And customer experience, I recently moved to the UK, okay, to live in the UK. And as a customer experience, my providers that are cloud native are far easier to work with as a customer than my non-cloud native providers. And I'm talking about banking, I'm talking about insurance, if I'm looking about Next Insurance that previously were on the stage. Far easier to work with cloud native companies. Everything is on the cloud, everything is easy, you see it in a sec. Every difference that you make is updated within the sec. And even a large bank that I won't say the name, yes, I currently have the app, and they told me, yes, as soon as you use your credit card, you will see it. No, 48 hours for the batch to run. Once again, batch 2023. 48 hours for the batch to run. This is crazy if you think about it. That means that the security works the same, more or less. So even the big ones need to go there, but as I mentioned, you need to drop the fear of evil and understand it's all over.
Thank you, everyone. The next one is a question that actually came from some of you in the audience, and that's for Sharon. So as a former CISO of Tinder, everyone here are eager to listen to tips on swiping right, left, up, down, some Easter eggs or something like this. You don't have to answer those, but maybe later. But definitely, I would like to hear how is it when you have so many consumers? You mentioned only 600 employees in the company, but I don't know, a couple of millions of actual users. So how a CISO of a company like this looks at it, whether it's your responsibility or not.
Okay, I'll answer your first question first. So I can't really talk about the super secretive swipe right technology of Tinder. I can only say that you should swipe with your left hand when you're swiping left and with your right hand when you're swiping right. Or vice versa. I'm only joking. I would say that you should read the bio carefully and not just look at the pictures. Swipe slower. Read
that's
first.
something you can only say now, not
I can only say now. I can only say now. At Tinder, I wasn't actually the CISO. I was more of a deputy CISO. Our security organization was pretty big. It's pretty large compared to the size of the company because we had millions of users to protect. And the way the team was structured is we had a product security group that included DevSecOps, application security, and a red team. And we had an enterprise security group, which was my group, which included IT security, GRC, incident response, and data security. And later on, I also got IT into my group. And I actually think I want to touch on that last part because it has to do with the subject. And I think it's really, really interesting and fascinating what's been happening in the kind of like IT and security structure over the last couple of years in cloud companies. We've been seeing, and I've been seeing, I've seen it at 23andMe, at Tinder, and now at HoneyBook, where IT ends up being part of the CISO organization, where traditionally security was usually part of the CIO or the IT organization. And I really think that the transition to the cloud is what enabled that. Because with the transition to the cloud, IT lost a little bit of control and power over the infrastructure. The infrastructure went to the cloud, and all of a sudden there's a new group called DevOps, and they are responsible for maintaining a pretty heavy piece of your infrastructure. While corporate IT is probably more focused on endpoints and users, identity and access management, and corporate application management. And above all of that, there's the CISO, who has a very kind of like wide view, a broad view of what security controls he needs to have in the cloud. So he works very closely with DevOps. And then he needs to have a lot of security controls still in our corporate IT environment. And as those teams work very closely together, when I started at 23andMe and the security team was just getting hired, they were hired under the IT organization. By the time I left 4 years later, the CISO basically ran DevOps, IT, and security organizations. They all reported up to him. And then the same thing happened to us at Tinder. IT and DevOps were kind of like working together. And as the security team was growing, we decided to move IT over to security because it just made a lot more sense to us. And same thing happened at HoneyBook. So I think that is a lot, I think, about the role of security in cloud IT operations. For your second question, about running security for a lot of millions of users. So if you kind of like look at my experience, it's mainly in the B2C security, which is I don't know how many people here are working B2C, securing B2C. Awesome. Hi, 2 people in the crowd and me. It's honestly it's quite different. The challenges and the mindset for us, it's all about the consumer, and it's a little different when your other side is not a business. Okay, because the business knows to come to you and demand for the SOC to report. And when you serve consumers, millions of them, nobody's going to knock on your door and ask for a SOC to report. So you have to like electively do stuff like ISO 27001. Nobody's asking us to do it, but we want to demonstrate how much we care about our members and about our customers. And really their trust is the one thing that we care most about. We know that they can go to any other vendor that they choose if we lose that trust. Just like with B2B, it's pretty much the same thing, but with our customers, it's for their success and their use of our applications. This is the most important thing to us, and that's why we want to enable them to conduct their whatever business they're doing securely within our app.
Thanks for that one.
Yep.
Shimri, as the one representing the vendors in the panel, and based on your experience, by the way, from the past as well, not just from this panel specifically, when trying to, or when implementing, when adopting a new cloud technologies, Cloudfare and other things, what are the things that needs to be considered by the CISO? Again, as Sharon mentioned, he's also usually managing the IT or responsible for IT as well. What should be the consideration? What should be the processes, or what to do? What is the number one advice you can give from the vendor side to the CISO?
So thank you for the question, Gidi. I think the first and foremost is process. You need to understand that ZTNA, SASE, all of these great words that currently are hot and everybody wants to go to, there's a process to do it. There's multiple vendors. We are also, but there's multiple vendors that will come and mention that they have the best ZTNA and the best SASE, and you should buy the entire platform. This is great, but choose the vendor that will show you the process, that will go hand by hand and will not tell you to do it all by once, since it will not work. The major issue that you will have is politics. Sharon probably knows it better than me. There's a lot of politics in such moves. The users will see other user experience. The customers might see other user experience. The partners, the allies that you work with. You should get everyone ready to it. Second thing, and you ask for a golden tip, management, executives, CEO, CIO, CFO, all of these C-levels, they need to be involved, they need to take ownership. If they do not take the ownership for such a process, probably it will collapse. Because there will be issues, especially to your privileged users, as the guys that I mentioned. Suddenly they won't be able to connect to a system. They want to see the dashboard in 1 minute, and there will be a lot of clashes with you. So you need them to be inside the process, to understand that their digital transformation is your security transformation, and it goes hand by hand, and it has to go together. Don't go all in at once. It's not a poker.
Thanks for that, Shimri. Tzach, so you heard the CISO point of view. You heard basically the vendor saying how complicated things like this can be. And so, as someone that's moved from a CISO to a CISO as a service, and you probably know that CISO as a service is not full-time, usually, not in all cases, but sometimes it's just once or twice a week or something like this. And it must have been, I mean, for CISOs, it's super complicated. How does it for CISO as a service? And, you know, what is your expertise, or what is your experience, sorry, as a CISO as a service when coming to such a project?
Thank you, Gidi. I think that's an excellent question. As a CISO of a large enterprise, I worked in a structured environment. It was easy in the way that you have a set budget, you can use it. You have a set team, you can use it. You know the reporting structure, what you need to do each day, each week, each month. It makes your life somewhat easier. But when going into the CISO as a service, and this was a very conscious decision, it enables me to work with multiple organizations, their investors, their VCs, their customers, and it gives me a broader view of many more technologies, domains, methodologies, because each one is different. And that's the challenge, the context switch. When you go from one customer to another customer, suddenly the CEO is different. She thinks that security is a necessary evil. Another company's CEO thinks that security is so great because it enables them to sell. So you have to address each one of them in a different way, but it drives the best out of us because we focus on the things that are important, the drivers that makes the business go. And nobody in a startup will do something for security unless they understand the business meaning. So they don't just buy DDoS protection. They buy DDoS protection because either they have experienced something or there is an external requirement that they have to fulfill. So it's a different challenge, but it's very satisfactory when you work with such customers, when you go with a customer and you know, they sign a term sheet for funding. It's amazing.
Thank you for that, Tzach. Sharon, getting back to you. So we spoke about the process. We even heard that even CISO as a service role can manage it eventually and get satisfactory when succeeding, obviously. As a CISO, what other challenges do you have? Things like shadow IT. I mean, how do you handle those things that we all know that are problematic, even in the on-premise, even in the old world, but definitely in cloud, when you know everything is super intuitive, and in a matter of click, sometimes you get things or you get data outside of the organization.
So there's a lot of challenges because of how fast things are happening in the cloud, right? Usually the security team is small, and everything is happening very, very quickly around us. But from all the things, I wanna touch on shadow IT, because it really is a pain in the back, for sure. So software companies that develop products on cloud infrastructure made it extremely easy for end users to use their products, right? And a lot of times it's free. And the end users are probably just clicking away and signing up for software productivity tools, whatever it is, without really asking for permissions. And it's very hard to manage and reel in all of your shadow IT. It depends on like when do you join the organization, what controls you had before. But if you're migrating from on-prem to the cloud, it's not just about that migration. The migration is just like one thing you have to worry about, like how are we going to successfully migrate over? But it's really everything that's going to happen afterwards. It's kind of like having a baby. You've had the migration, great, you're migrated to the cloud. Now you actually have to maintain all this thing you've created. And shadow IT is going to be there to haunt you for sure. Right? Probably as I sit here and speak right now, people in my company are signing up for something that I'll have to figure out what it is later. There are controls for that, and you definitely need to have a plan to implement technical controls where you can. But you also need a very good process that you can train people on. And you actually also have to follow your own process, because we all know we have a lot of security tools and we are no exemption. We have to follow our own process that will actually help us understand the pain points and like if this process is really working. We want this process to be easy to follow and fast. So your criteria to how you're going to risk your vendors needs to be kind of like quick, because probably you're not going to even have the time to review, like heavily review all of the vendors that are going to come to your desk, because every single department have just learned today about like 2 or 3 other vendors that they really, really want to onboard: marketing, product, designers, DevOps, developers. They love new tools. And you kind of like lost control of, they can install it without your permission pretty much, right? They can sign up. They can pay from their own account and ask for expense later. So yes, there are technical controls. I would say, as much as we like to call ourselves business enablers, and we are trying to be business enablers and friendly, at the end of the day, for the end user, we are saying, yes, but here, just follow this like long process, right? That's not the best experience for them, though that's the reality that we have to live in.
Thanks for that. Tzach, the next one is for you, but before that, with the raise of your hand, how many of you know the terms left of boom and right of boom? Wow, 1. So first of all, how many of you, with the raise of your hand, know the terms left of boom and right of boom? 2, 3, maybe 4. So first of all, during Cyber Week, there is a really interesting guest here, a speaker called Sunil Yu, and he invented something called Cyber Defense Matrix. Why I'm mentioning it? Because it's going to be basically the next question. So far, we discussed the day-to-day basics of a CISO in a corporate IT related to cloud security. So anything before the boom, before an incident happened, that's basically the left of boom. The right of boom is after something happened. And the question for you, Tzach, is how different is it in the cloud when something happened? Does that change from an on-prem? Does that change from left of boom in this case? What exactly do we need to do?
Well, there's a huge difference, especially with the preparation. And I would relate that, again, to what we discussed earlier regarding the ability to know what we have, the asset management. If we don't know what we have, and it relates to shadow IT, it relates to management, and I would also connect it to one other subject that is usually not mentioned. We as IT and security practitioners tend not to follow our own procedures and processes. Any process, any procedure, any tool we deploy has to follow the same processes, because they can be the breach mechanism. And I will give you a short example. We deployed password management solution. And this was great because this enables us to use very complex, very long passwords. Nobody needs to remember them. They remember their master password, and then, oops, the password management application got breached. And it doesn't matter which one. It's just an example of a tool that you rely on to perform your processes, and suddenly, not only it doesn't protect you, it exposes you. So one of the key issues, and it's always planning, and shift left. You have to have a very good asset management. It doesn't have to be automated, although it is better if it is. You have to understand your shadow IT, and you have to be able to collect and preserve the logs. If you don't collect and preserve the logs in the cloud environment, they will not be there when you need them. And even if you think, and that's again a difference between on-prem and cloud environment, that the CSP, the cloud service provider, will collect and keep the logs for you, please make sure to read the SLAs. Because the cloud service provider follows their SLA, they will not do more than the basic SLA unless you take care of it. And in the split responsibility model, there's only one thing that is always under our responsibility, which is the configuration. We need to know how we configure logs, where they are, how we can access them, how they will not disappear when we need them, how we make them immutable, so an attacker does not get in and change them, as is normally the practice. How an attacker doesn't get to our backups, and yes, in the cloud it happens also. So everything needs to be before the incident happens. And then we get to a different issue is, how do we perform forensic analysis in the cloud when we can't just image a machine? We have running instances. If we want to do something on them, it will affect the business. So if we don't practice, if we don't perform an IR exercise before the incident, we might be stuck in a position where the business tells us we cannot shut down Kubernetes. Why? Because we have shopping season, we have a strategic customer. For whatever reason, we might not be able to do it in the same way. So everything goes in assets, planning, exercise, making sure you have all the reporting channels, and especially in the cloud. Who do we have to talk to? Do we have the phone number of someone in Azure, in AWS, in Salesforce? If something happens, who do we call in GCP? Do we know who they are?
Thanks for that one. Shimri, the next one is for you. So we managed the, again, left of boom, right of boom. We spoke about shadow IT. We spoke about, we even mentioned vendor management. So as the vendor, again in our panel, and sorry for that, position, but c'est la vie. How can we trust you, the vendors? So I know how to trust my vendors in general because I look at them. But for you as my vendor, you also have your own vendors, what we like to call also the fourth party side. So how can we trust you to trust them, or how can we trust you, assuring that they are following what we would like to have?
First of all, Gidi, you yourself, you will never trust vendors, but never mind, let's go.
Trust but verify.
But I would say first, we both need to trust each other, let's be honest here. And one thing that was mentioned by Tzach is the SLA. Both sides need to read the SLA of the other side, which means who's responsible for what, when, and where, and understand it while they sign the contract. SLAs are very strict. I mean, if the vendor told you he will keep the information for 30 days, there's no negotiation later on, I need the logs from the day 35. There will be no logs. And if you're talking about cloud providers, they have one business. And if you understood what this business is, you will understand the SLAs. Anyone wants to tell me, is that security? Is that, I don't know, consumer? What do they do mostly? Money out of what? Storage. Their business is storage, that's it. That's it, the reason that while the SLA is higher, you pay more. This is more storage. and they know you need more storage. They know there's regulation that needs 6 months, 12 months, 7 years, blah, 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 and even more. And this means a lot of money for a vendor that supplies cloud perspective. Now, there's only one way we see it at Cloudflare to trust the vendors, and I think most of us should see it, and fortunately technology today allows it. Zero trust end-to-end. Services, people, our customers, end-to-end zero trust. Doesn't mean if it's a automated service, doesn't mean, I don't care if it's a person, never mind who it is, it should be zero trusted, which means the connectivity, the verification, the continuous verification, continuous identity. All the time you need to check it. You need to have a very good API with your identity providers. Better to have a federated solution upon your different identity providers. Could it be Okta? Could it be OpenID? Could it be others? But one federated solution that constantly move the policies around, and all of them should be zero trusted. Don't allow any open ports to run for hours or to run for days, or a service provider that has his own ticket opened and he goes to drink the coffee, he comes back and the port is open, which is great. Do your own math, replan your networks, do the architecture that all your third, fourth, fifth parties are zero trusted, exactly as your employees, by the way.
Thanks for that. So we have about 1 minute left. So let's keep it quick. 1 to 2 sentences. Question to all of you guys, starting from you, Sharon. So what would be your number 1 tip? Not about Tinder, about the role of the CISO in corporate IT. Only one, the best advice, the secret sauce of you, the CISO.
I would say manage your stakeholders, both like manage up and manage down. You have to understand the risk appetite of your leadership team, because this is how you're going to build your strategy. Okay, we talked a little bit about shadow IT. Can I block users from adding new shadow IT? Of course I can. Do I have leadership support to do it? How am I going to communicate it down to my users, right? Being a CISO these days is a lot about communication and management and really seeing the bigger picture.
So I would add, and that was a great answer, but I would add mediation of the risks and the regulatory requirements to management, which they are not always aware of.
I would join Sharon and Tzach, and I would say also understand your business and the needs of the customer experience, the internal one and the external one. Since you will delve into the processes after 1-2 months in the job, and you will forget that your end goal is customer experience eventually.
Thanks for that.
SASE and zero trust, right?
Thanks for that one. I would say, by the way, either coffee or a really, really good team, but I totally accept yours. Thank you very much, Sharon, Tzach.
Thank you very much, Gidi.